The Syndicate live stream.
It's 11:59 on Radio Free America. This is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I've got a few words for some of my brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall.
We'll do it live. We'll do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
All right, welcome to the live stream. We've got Jared from 2 Alpha Solutions and Drew from the Terminal Element. And we've also got a guest that just stepped away for a moment, but he'll be right back. Another Drew who runs the Instagram channel, HOA Ham Radio Guy. And I guess so for those of you who are active on amateur radio, you can send us your comments or questions via JSA call. I guess, what are we going to do, 20 meters today? Or
yeah, whatever you want. I'm up on 40 meter and it's terrible. So how about I switch on over to 20 meters? You want that? Let's see.
Yeah, let's do that. Whatever. I haven't looked at the band conditions, so whatever works best.
All right, dropping a heartbeat now. We'll see what we get back.
Awesome. Okay, so we'll be on 20 meters, so that's 14.078 megahertz, and so you can direct those comments or questions to callsigngroup@TCS. So on this episode, we got quite a bit to go over. One of the topics will be ham radio operations under HOA restrictions. And then as far as current events are concerned, we've got quite a bit to talk about. So one of the current events is basically a topic of, pretty much conversation everywhere is, are we on the cusp of World War III? Looks like the news as of a couple of hours ago may change that, but that will segue into sleeper cells and Iran's internet blackout. But first, let's meet our guests. So we've got another Drew. Welcome, sir, and thanks for doing a live with us. And yeah, so howdy. You got to a fight, but you won.
Yeah, not quite. Not quite.
How are we going to figure this out, by the way? Are we doing like handsome Drew versus ugly Drew, or bald Drew versus, like, how are we figuring this out? You lush head of hair, sir. Bravo.
I don't know. You're the you're the resident. I'm just the new guy. So
I think HOA Ham Radio Guy will be handsome Drew, and then you'll just be regular Drew. How's that?
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, we'll work with it.
Well, handsome Drew, for those not familiar with your channel, can you tell us a little bit about your content and how you got into amateur radio?
Yeah, sure. So I kind of got into amateur radio, just dealing with some handhelds for a group of guys who are just trying to be like, just generally prepared for whatever. And that kind of got me started. Then from there, my channel I got licensed in July of last year. So I haven't been licensed all that long yet. And I was like, I'm pretty new to this. I wonder if anybody would be curious to kind of watch my progression as I got into ham radio and the things I was learning while I was doing it. And from there, I don't do social media. Like before this, I was a very not social media kind of guy. But then I was like, you know what? I should do it. And my wife gave me a little bit of encouragement. So I created the HOA Ham Radio Guy, which is my other persona, effectively. And this focus is more on emergency communications, preparedness, while being kind of confined by that of the rules of an HOA, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know. Well, so that kind of segues into our first topic, really, and it's, basically about operating under an HOA. And so for those who don't have an HOA, I have one, but many have provisions that restrict or outright prohibit outdoor antennas. Some actually might require you to seek prior consent for antenna installation. I believe my HOA, there's somewhere in the CCNRs that I guess you can't have an antenna that's higher than like the peak of your roof. I don't know what yours is, handsome Drew, but wow, this is going to be hard. This is going to be difficult this whole time. But basically, I can't have an antenna that's higher than the peak of my roof. So I've kind of cheated the system a little bit. I know some people, they'll do like a gutter antenna and stuff like that. But there's I guess an FCC policy, and I don't know how many people are familiar with it. I wasn't really very familiar with it until I kind of saw your channel and I started trying to figure out ways for myself, like, well, how am I going to defeat the HOA? But it's titled PRB 1. And I'll pull it up here in a second. Let's see. There it is. Let me just add it to the stage. So anyway, just to briefly summarize, the document states that local governments must take reasonable accommodations for ham radio operations, but they may still zone for antenna height, safety, and aesthetic concerns. However, my understanding of this policy is it primarily applies to municipal land use regulations and not necessarily covenants like you would find under HOA regulations. So like I said, it does sort of address it, but they can't really do anything about the private covenants that we make with our HOAs. But I guess if the community you live in is governed by an HOA, then you might face similar restrictions on installing those antennas and stuff. But I guess Handsome Drew, what are some ways you've been able to successfully operate around the restrictions set by your HOA?
So really, there's like two ways you go about it. You either do it as discreetly as possible, make it to where no one knows, or you could just go out and try to talk to your HOA. My HOA president specifically, he's all about being prepared for weather. Like I've talked to him numerous times. I go to the meetings when I can. He's a really cool guy. So if I talk to him, I'm almost confident that he would be cool with letting me do whatever. The issue is I'm pretty sure the wallet doesn't let me do whatever. So I was saying, you know what? Instead of spending a ton of money on this, I can also just do it discreetly and build antennas that work for me. Unfortunately, that kind of puts me limited as to what bands I get to use while I'm at home, like installed in my shack per se. But so I personally have a 20-meter dipole up my attic. I fed it like a TV box in the wall, some PVC pipe in the wall behind it, some 90 degrees at the top, some LMR 400 goes up, dipole antenna in the attic. It works fantastic. I have gotten a few FT8s out to Australia time to time. So, I mean, it performs great. If I needed it in an emergency, I know I can use it. I connect with it WinLink all the time, just a call, FT8, voice. Like I've really tried to maximize my abilities with that 20-meter antenna only. Of course, right now in the solar cycle, it's worked great. Talk to me in 6 years and we'll see if it's still working as good.
Right.
But I've talked to some other guys who are limited as well. And one of them chose to put like a 4-to-1 balun or something like that at the bottom of his gutter. He installed that. And he got like a 1.1 SWR on like 40 meters or something like that on the bottom of his gutter downspout. I'm like, that's awesome. And then other guys do flagpole antennas. So if you're looking to be discreet, you got to get creative. You don't have an option of not being creative while also trying to be discreet. So mine fits my attic, and it goes from, and I wish I was kidding, one end of the attic all the way to the other end with maybe 6 inches to spare. But it's right up in the eave of the attic, so the roof doesn't affect it. The HVAC and stuff like that doesn't affect it. I do get some noise, QRM from that HVAC unit every now and then, but for the most part, it's all right.
Yeah, that sounds like something similar to what I have. My antenna runs from one end to the other side of the attic, and that's really the only way I've been able to kind of defeat having an HF antenna that big up. I don't have enough. Yeah, I don't really have the like gutter length to make anything effective.
Well, with that 4-to-1 balun or unun, forgive me.
Yeah.
Doesn't that's you don't actually have to have that long of a gutter to make that work, right?
I haven't built one yet, so I wouldn't exactly know. But I feel like it's kind of like a random wire setup, I would imagine. Probably
Yeah, I mean that's what it is. It makes a random wire antenna. I think you can even have as short as like 20 or even 16 feet if I'm remembering correctly from the charts I've seen online.
I'd imagine it's like an inverted L because you got the downspout and the gutter runs the length of the house. So it's probably, I don't know, what, 12 feet tall with the gutter to downspout. Probably runs, I don't know, 45 feet. So, I mean, he's got plenty to work with.
Yeah,
Sounds creative.
Have you, regular Drew or Jared, have you, either of you lived under an HOA where you had to, work around restrictions, or even, I guess this would apply even to apartments.
The only time
Does
I've
hell
ever
go with
come
no?
close- The only time I've ever come close was when I lived in base housing. We were restricted, but that's the military. It's the same concept. You had to get permission, which they did actually grant me permission to put some small VHF antennas up on the house that I was living in at the time.
Yeah, what was it?
I wasn't running HF at the time though either.
I guess it was last year when we did the live with Wyoming Survival, and we were talking about the. I guess he took one of those little banana plug connectors and strung one up inside his hotel with speaker wire, and seemed to work pretty well. It was on what did he use? JS8 call. I don't know if you guys remember or not.
He unscrambled somebody's scrambled channel in the other room over.
Yeah, okay, so the Skinamax channels.
Pre-bald Drew, are you one of these folks who love living in an HOA? I've met a couple of them. Or did you just find yourself in an HOA and you wish you weren't?
I had to move for work. And
Gotcha.
Unfortunately, if you've seen anywhere on the map where I'm close to, I'm not far from Charleston, South Carolina. So unfortunately, around here, the houses were either a dump and cost too much, or they were nice, a little expensive, but almost exclusively in an HOA. So I didn't have much of a choice. Luckily, my HOA seems all right. They seem pretty cool for the most part. If you talk to them, they're fine. But I don't support them. Not at all.
That's pretty rare to have a board that works with people, isn't it? It seems like when I talk to people, they're just like, yeah, my HOAs, they're terrible people. They just want to throw their weight around and have control over people. And what's the average people like?
I mean, people say that, but we have 1,000 homes in this neighborhood, and it's not that big. So it's huge. It's crazy for how small it is, how many people live here. And you go to a meeting, and there'll be like 80 people there. I assume 2 people per home. That's 2,000 people.
Yeah.
So you're getting like 5% of people show up. So how could most people say their HOA is, oh, they're so blah, 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 if they don't even take the time to show up? You know what I mean?
No, I think you hear the worst of HOAs on social media and whatnot, because that's what gets attention. Nobody pays attention to the cool HOAs that don't give you any problems.
It's also true. Now, they tried to find me once for algae growing on the side of my house because it's moist over there in South Carolina for crying out loud. Humidity is always like 80%. And I was like, this is dumb. Like, I was working midnights at the time. I'm like, how am I supposed I have a pressure washer, but how am I supposed to go out and do this? I made time. I did it. And later on, the HOA president was talking. He said, guys, if you get a notice for a fine, because they don't fine you right away, they give you notice first. So if you get a notice, but you reach out to me and then list off a few of the other guys, part of the board, and tell us, hey, we will work, tell us what your problem is and what your timeline is to get it fixed. And we can move that fine back to after the day you think you're going to get it fixed. And if you get it fixed, it'll just be gone. It won't be a problem. Just you got to talk to them. And I was like, well, that's pretty reasonable if you ask me.
I don't really have any problems with mine. They're pretty laid back, actually. I've only had one other experience with an HOA before living in my current house, and that one was really almost kind of hands off. Their only function was actually to maintain this like tributary system within our community. So basically to manage water runoff and make sure that the community doesn't flood. But that was really about it. They didn't really care what color you painted your house. I had a pretty decent size antenna up at one point. But this one, a little bit more restrictive, and they are a little bit more hardcore about, what you do with your front yard and stuff like that. But yeah, I tend to agree. I haven't run into the nightmare Karen scenario of, someone just that's in my business constantly. But what kind of gear do you run other than your antennas?
Oh boy.
HF?
So I've got a. Let's see, not to get this wrong. It's not a Slim Jim. Be a J-pole, right? Yeah. No, they're the same thing. What's the other one? I'm forgetting. I'm drawing a blank right now. It's not a J. You just cut a little gap out of it. I think it's
It's a
Slim Jim,
Slim
right?
Jim.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Slim
it's a
Jim.
Slim
I'm
Jim.
tripping over that. I've been building them interchangeably, so I'm like, okay, which one is this technically? Yes, I got a Slim Jim up in the attic. I bought it from N9 TAX on eBay. I fed it up into my attic, so I've got that going up there for 2 meters and 70 centimeters. If you were on my page, you saw that I very recently finally got a VHF UHF rig in my truck. Everyone's got tons of handhelds, so we need to go into those. I have an ICOM 718 up in the station. She's older, but she works fantastic. That was my first radio that I got when I was starting to get into it. And then I eventually got my 857 here and built it out for some pod operations, and I've been using it a lot recently.
Looks like Alpha Charlie Concept says N9 TX makes good antennas. I have a couple of them. Yeah, I've got a couple of those as well. And just one of the little kits I have for 2 meter.
I've had some
70 centimeter.
outstanding performance with that antenna. That guy makes a great antenna. Yeah.
I love
just unfathomably good.
What's been kind of your use case for it, Drew?
Regular for me, Drew. Okay.
I'm just going to keep it going the whole time if I can remember.
This is hilarious. Okay, so I used it with like half a watt to reach like 50 miles with JSA call over 2 meter FM. That was wild, and I know it can go even further with that super low wattage. I think it has a pretty narrow angle of radiation, so I don't know exactly what the gain is, but I think I perceive that it's a higher gain antenna. I love that they're portable. They're a little bit bulky for packing around. I don't know as if it is a backpacker style of antenna. I think like a telescoping antenna is a little bit nicer for like backpacking, but it was one of the first antennas I ever purchased, and I've just had an affinity for it ever since.
One of the things that got me interested in Handsome Drew's Instagram channel is that you do a lot of looks like you do a lot of backpacking with your gear. One of the videos I was watching that you did, it looked like, I think you said you had about 90 pounds worth of gear.
Oh.
I don't know how far you were hiking, but I personally, I don't think I could do that. I did one a few weeks back with about 45 pounds and it damn near killed me because I'm getting old. But you're a better man than I am because I don't know how you're able to carry all of that.
Yeah, that was a winter field day, and boy, did I learn a lot from that. Radio, not radio, you name it. Oh my gosh. I could have done 10 minutes or plus worth of conversation on the stuff I learned from that event.
Well, there's been like there's a lot of people on YouTube specifically that you'll see that kind of like the radio you just held up a moment ago, with the cage around it and all that stuff. Yeah, that one. There's a lot of people that kind of insinuate that they go out into the woods with that setup, and of course, you guys know the antenna that you need to bring with something like that to make all that shit work. But and then of course all of your peripheral stuff, your cables, your power supplies, you name it. But I mean, how reasonable do you think it is for some of the people that you hear on YouTube that kind of claim that you're going to load that into your bug out bag and you're going to take all that gear out with you?
Well, like I said, winter field day, 90 pounds. Yeah. If you can't carry that 90 pounds, you're not. Just straight up. I have done a FTX style event with my comms gear. I decided it was like 24 hours, so I didn't have any means to recharge or anything like that. What I had is what I had.
Right.
And like I said, that's still about 85, 90 pounds of gear.
And I assume you're carrying the essentials.
I'm a little extra sometimes. But for the most part, yeah, you're not really carrying everything in the kitchen sink. That was before I got my M1 ECC slide winder. I'm sure you see that on my channel a lot. I use it a lot for POTA. So I'd use a dipole. So I had my Soda Beams tactical mini mast out there. Ended up not even using it. I just strung this dipole up between some trees. But like, yeah, those guys are like, "Oh, I'll just put it in my bug out bag and it'll be good." I hope you're bugging out in your car.
I mean,
Not-
where was your rifle and your extra magazines and your? I didn't
You're
see
just not
any of
doing
it.
it.
Yeah,
There's no way.
that's what I thought.
Now, if you plan it, I'm a huge guy about planning, right? I mean, for crying out loud, I live in South Carolina here. I'm hurricanes, right? So that's what my major focus is, obviously,
Right.
on preparations and stuff is hurricanes. It's weather. That's the most likely thing to happen here. That or supposedly earthquakes. Who would have known? But so all my stuff is tailored to that. So if I have to leave, if I have to escape, it's gonna be with a car. I'm not gonna be
Right.
walking it. I've got a family I gotta worry about. So car. So I've got means of sticking an antenna on my wife's car with a magnetic puck because she doesn't want an antenna on her car. That's fine. But I'm going to go ahead and build a little temporary power supply cable, route it in her car, get it plugged into the battery. So all I have to do to get my ID 5100 out of the truck and put it in her car is take that magnetic puck, toss it on her roof, plug it in with that Anderson power pole for a cable that I'm going to install. I haven't done it yet, slacking. And then use her car to leave if I have to, or we're just taking the truck. But to answer the original question is, if you're not training with it, I don't do it a lot because you hurt yourself. Once, twice a month with that weight, you're just not doing it, and I hope you're planning accordingly.
Yeah.
Is your wife a licensed amateur, or do you have a different plan for intra-family communications like GMRS?
question?
She's not, but to be honest with you, she would probably be right next to me anyways. However, if that were to happen, I do have some ideas what I'm going to do. I have an emergency comms binder that I started making a few weeks ago, and she's pretty much with me. I don't say all the time, but a lot. We have a very young daughter, so she doesn't really go off and do too much. Stay-at-home mom right now because of the 1-year-old. So really, it'd be me getting back to the house and then coming away to contact my family. And a lot of things that people don't realize is, one, you can use WinLink to send it to regular emails. And if you take and know somebody's cell provider and their phone number, those two things, you find their cell provider, they have an email listed. You take that email and you put their phone number with it, and you send a message to that. That email will go to the phone carrier. They have like an automated system that processes that email, and it will convert it over to a text message and send it to that phone number. So if I'm stuck and I need somebody, what's up?
I used to do that a lot. AT&T just dropped that support for that text message service. They're
That is
absolutely criminal. Yeah.
what a waste. Well, thank gosh, everyone I know uses Verizon, so we're still good.
Well, it's
Good
good
for
you guys are
them.
bringing all this up because this is totally good. I know we're going to jump into some current events in a little bit. We don't have to do it right now, but all of this will definitely segue into that because, Iran is kind of going through a communications blackout. Looks like Corsair is going to slide out. Thanks for jumping on, sir. But they're going through like a communications blackout. So that'll be kind of one of the things we talk about. But before we jump into anything else, just really quickly. So I should have mentioned this when we started, but I forgot because we started talking. But for the folks watching on Instagram, I guess Instagram's integration doesn't really like permit me to show your comments or actually even see them inside the StreamYard UI. So I'm not ignoring you guys. My apologies. But if I see some comments in the comment section, I'll definitely try and read them out and throw them out there. Like I said, we're just limited on with what StreamYard's able to do with Instagram. So I apologize for that. But it looks like Shane _ MPS said that Handsome Drew, I guess he was with you for that field day.
Yeah, he was with me at that FTX I was talking about.
How much was he carrying?
Okay, for the record, I was probably the second heaviest guy there, so not as much as me. But obviously, team members, right? Different loadouts entirely. So his role was completely separate from mine. But say everyone but one guy was definitely lighter than I was.
Well, with all the gear that I took a few weeks ago, I usually I'll try and pack all my necessities before I pack my radio gear. All I ended up taking was I had a Microsoft Go 3 tablet, which is pretty light, and then my Shigu X6100 portable antenna, just some odds and ends as far as battery supply and cables, and that was really about it. I mean, once I got past, there wasn't really a lot of room for too much else other than, besides the water that I had, because it was a pretty rough hike. And then I had my first aid kit and quite a few other things. But I see some of these guys out there, lugging all this stuff, and I'm like, damn, I don't think I could carry all that shit. But I guess, like you said, it's just a matter of training, and it maybe over time you get used to it.
I definitely overpacked too much radio stuff because I think at the time that was like my first time getting my stuff like actually out into the field, not just like set in my backyard. So I didn't know how much time I had to operate with my batteries because I only use 2 3 amp hour batteries. Turns out on digital, when I never push past like 20 watts, those last hours. So I could have definitely dropped it to one of those. I could have gotten rid of half the gear that I used. So like knowing now what I used versus what I didn't, or how long we were out there for, I could 100% drop. Oh dear Lord. I think I had 30 pounds or so of radio gear.
What would you have left behind?
Spare battery. Probably didn't need it. My laptop got changed out because that one crashed. So now I have a smaller laptop that's about a pound lighter. So that would help. I'd probably just take one antenna out there instead of like having one for 40, one for 20. It's a good idea to have them, but to sub for that, I would just use the 40. But then I also have the little those Wago connector, cable connector things. Have the little flip tabs on them, so I could repair a cable in the field if I had to. So, or I could just cut one for 20, use those to connect it to elements for 40, make it one antenna that does both.
Yeah, I have those little connectors in my kit. Those are very useful. You can, I don't know where you got them from. I know you can get them from like Home Depot and stuff.
Lowe's, I think.
Lowe's, you got them from Lowe's, yeah.
Do you bother with a tuner? Sorry.
I was going to say over on Instagram, Shane said he was carrying about, looks like 60-ish pounds in his pack. So that's a lot. I mean, because one of the things that I was reading, just about general hiking is that if you carry about 30% of your body weight, that's usually a good number, and it's not going to hurt you. But I don't know. That's
I mean, if you saw my page, I literally was out there the other day carrying about 40 pounds, walked. I pushed a little too hard because I've started to try to get a little more into the training side of it. So I walked it casually-ish to 3.3 miles. And then something in me decided, hey, I should try to jog this. I'm trying to get more shape. I should do this. I'll jog a mile here and we'll call it a day, So I started jogging. I was dead. That was a dumb idea. I should have let it go. I was so sore. My back, oh my gosh, it was killing me. But I did it.
Do you bother packing a tuner? Or do you go for resonance?
No, I don't. I actually pack here it is. I always just pack my Rig Expert Stick Pro, and I always tune my antennas I got in the field every time.
How does that tuning process work? Do you just bend the wire over and twist it up, or what does that look like?
Depending on the antenna type, yep. Dipoles, just roll them over. Crayon Eric on Instagram. I'm sure you guys have heard of him at least once or twice.
Yeah.
Actually got me a really good technique of using some guy line tensioners and some shock cord keepers, like little things on hoodie strings. Those go on the antenna wire somewhere, and the guy line tensioner goes on the end. So you got 2 holes. The wire goes through one hole and back the other. Then that shock cord keeper holds that in place on the line. Then you can shuffle them around as necessary, and it makes the process, it's got to be twice as fast from what I used to do before.
Was it you that I saw that was reading this book?
No, it wasn't me. Who was that? Oh, man. I know who it is, though.
Have you read it?
No, I haven't.
It's kind of interesting. The reason I brought it up is because that book, it's total fictitious story, but basically it talks about all the gear that you would, essentially bring with you into the field if like, like if you're out there kind of surviving on your own. And the reason I brought it up is I was going to ask you how realistic you thought that was, but I guess I can't ask you that question now. But, because we're on the topic of essentially bringing 90 pounds worth of gear with you out into the field. But yours is obviously purpose driven. You're bringing all that for like a soda or, parks on the air. Regular Drew, you just did is it your first soda activation?
It was my first soda. That was a lot of fun. I did not pack 90 pounds. In fact, I normally my pack is about 40 pounds, and I took a lot of stuff out. And I have to thank Selkirk QRP, my friend Orion, for urging me to lighten that pack up a bit to go up this mountain, because we had I think it's about 3,500 feet elevation gain over 4 miles, and it was a stout walk, even with, I think my pack was probably like 25 or 30 pounds at that point. But very glad I lightened that thing up.
Oh, I guess over on Instagram. So Inbrew875, I guess he suggested that book to Drew. So I guess he's right.
Nicholas, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, actually, no, I see him in the YouTube chat. There he is. He says, yeah, hold on one second. I think that's the same guy. Keep tagging Drew every time I ruck.
Right on.
He does. Oh my God. He's like, got him. And I'm like, you know what, dude? Are you happy I'm out here doing this right now? It's South Carolina. It's like 90 degrees, 80% humidity. I hope you're happy.
Does he have a YouTube channel?
Instagram. He does a lot of Instagram.
He just has Instagram. Got it.
I actually met up with him, maybe a month ago. He was doing a little Parks on the Air tour down here in South Carolina. I got out of work and got to hang out with him once.
Oh, that's cool.
And they were trying to use voice, and the band conditions were just not working for him that day. So I bust out my helpful 857 with my laptop here, plug in digital mode, and all three of us activated that park on my radio. We all had the same voice contact on their G90, and then we all got the rest of the activation or rest of the contacts necessary off of using FT8 on my computer.
Oh, that's cool.
So then the next day, they had their laptop set up for FT8, and they were knocking them all out.
That's awesome.
Wicked.
So you're a general class? Is that right?
Yep, general. I knew that I was probably smart enough to do them both at the same time. I'm slightly smarter than the average idiot, I would normally say. And I was like, you know what, I can do this. So I got on and used ham radio prep. Went and paid for the technician and general classes. Went through and I took them. Did all the study materials. I was crushing the exams. And I was like, within a few days, I'd finished all the material for the exam, sat down. It took me longer to drive to the exams than it took me to take the exams. I got a 33 out of 35 on the tech and a 34 out of 35 on the general, and then walked out of there. So,
wow, good for you. That's better than I did.
If you like to look at material and learn the stuff behind it, which I have to do, right? I hate just memorizing stuff. It kills me. I want to learn. I want to understand it. And material lets you kind of do both. You can just go through the questions and just memorize the questions. Or you can watch their whole videos, do their whole transcript reading, take the practice quizzes, and like learn the material, which is what I loved about it myself.
Well, that's awesome. Let's see. Looks like Inbrew says 17 parks in 3 days thanks to Ham Radio Guide. That's cool. That's awesome. That's a lot of work in the field.
He
puts
a lot of work in there for sure.
I mean, I like it because I was not really that into the soda or POTA stuff really when I got into amateur radio. I was more into just kind of the emergency preparedness end of it. But it's really a great way to test your gear. And I'm a very firm believer in no matter if you've got all of your gear set up or not, you should test it, constantly.
Yes.
And that's a great way to do it. I mean, just the kind of the hike that I did 2 or 3 weeks ago, like that was a totally failed hike, but like you were saying, like you learned a lot from yours. I learned a lot from mine, from just tons of mistakes that I made. Regular Drew, you had something.
I had something.
Oh, it looked like you were going to say something a second ago.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm trying. I just sent another heartbeat to make sure that my yeah, I got like four contacts in between Alaska to, let's see, where we at? Colorado, Arizona, Ontario. So 20 meters working. If anybody out there is wanting to fire off a comment to us on JS8 call, hit us at TCS on 14078. Just waiting for you.
And this is a good way to practice too, sending
Heck yeah.
comments and having us read them on air.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, let's move into some current events, because I'm sure some of the folks watching will be interested in that. But yard sale, I was noticing, left a comment just before you all went live. Israel and Iran agreed to a temporary ceasefire. Yeah, that's been a very fluid situation, and usually as part of this show, we try to discuss current events, and as everyone's aware, it seems lately there's really been no shortage of crises, and despite some of these alleged ceasefires and peace talks, I think some still believe we're still on World War III's doorstep. And additionally, we've had some domestic events like civil unrest related to the recent ICE raids and ongoing deportations. Although it seems like that may have died down a little bit, but I don't know if it's going to pick up as the summer goes on or not. There's fears that if we're drawn into a protracted conflict in the Middle East, hopefully we're not, we'll experience an economic downturn. But there's also the concern that sleeper cells will become active in the United States as a result of our involvement with Iran and Israel. And let's see, I'll throw this up in a second. So I've got an article here. This is from the Economic Times, just stating that, the threat of sleeper cells is a growing concern for Western nations. And so let's say that we don't achieve peace, and this picks up back again. If they do become active, what targets do you think they would attack, and how effective do you think that strategy would be?
I don't think it's necessarily sleeper cells that we have to worry about so much. I think it's going to be the one-offs, the one-off sympathizer nutcases out there that go out and shoot up churches, like just happened in Michigan here a couple days ago.
Or the firebombing attack in Boulder.
Yeah. Well, are they still trying to determine if any of that's kind of connected, or did they figure out what it was? The one in Michigan.
I haven't heard anything the past day or so. Last I heard was he was a hitman for Tim Waltz, but I don't believe that. As much as I want to.
That was a weird deal, wasn't it?
Yeah, it just I think there's going to be some religious type attacks, persecution type deals. I think the church shootings are going to be a little bit more prominent here in coming weeks or months.
Well, we could look at places like France as a window into what our future may look like. The Bataclan Theater attack, I believe the pronunciation is Nice, the market attack with the van. I mean, I think extremists have figured out that these are really, really effective ways to terrorize and kill a lot of people effectively and swiftly. So I think it's on us to begin actually taking real steps to mitigate our risk for our families in these types of situations. And I think that's still, for whatever reason, very uncomfortable for a lot of people to think about. And I don't know what to attribute that to other than normalcy bias. But normalcy bias kills. We have to get past that.
Yeah, I got two aspects on this. One of them is kind of the news is going to push it all because nothing gets people to watch more than fear. That's a common thing. But let's be honest here. We've been saying that World War III is imminent since the start of the Cold War. Like everyone thought that was it. Like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, the 1960s, we're going to go war with Russia. And it's going to be doomsday and blah, 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 right? And every year, it seems like they always say the nuclear clock is now always, it's closer to midnight than it's ever been before. But like, how true can that be, right? Like, obviously, we haven't done it yet. You can half something infinitely. Mathematics says you can have something infinitely. So, like, are we really that close? Who knows? The sleeper cells thing, sure. Will there be isolated pockets of sympathizers, like Jared said? Yeah, maybe, probably. Will we link it to that, even if that's true or not? Possibly. So, it's hard to tell what'll happen. Only time will tell.
So Shane on Instagram, just to kind of correct the record. So I guess the event that Jared brought up was actually in Minnesota. He said Michigan.
Yeah,
had
Minnesota, not Michigan.
Yeah. He said Michigan had a church shooting though. So there was a separate incident there, and then somewhere in there, and I'm not sure if I've got the country right, but I thought Syria there was some sort of attack on a Christian church that they're kind of loosely attributing to the Israeli Iran thing. So I guess we'll find out later on. But you know,
Syria, you can blame it on anything in Syria.
Probably. But to lend some credibility, you know, to the threat of the sleeper cell idea, earlier this month, a couple of Chinese nationals were charged with conspiracy, fraud, and smuggling a deadly biopathogen into the United States. I guess specifically, they smuggled a fungus called Fusarium generarium, which scientific literature classifies as a potential agroterrorism weapon. Essentially, this thing's capable of wreaking havoc on wheat, barley, maize, and rice crops, and it also poisons humans and livestock with its toxic byproducts. So, I guess if you know, that kind of stuff's going on, I mean that happened before this really started kicking off with Israel and Iran. So, I mean, these things are happening in the background, but you know, it does make you wonder, like, well, I mean, if it is happening in the background, then what are they waiting on?
The agroterrorism thing with the fungus started years ago. I think 2018, 19, if I'm not mistaken. And I think they were just watching them over the past years to see where the links were and everything. And they finally just recently arrested them on it.
So you're saying that was something that was going on for a long time, and then they just now busted them for it?
Yeah.
That's even scarier. I mean, just the thought that, you know, people are plotting.
And I think one or two or both, whatever, of those people that were arrested were working for a university,
right?
In a lab or something at a university. So, but for them to be caught trying to smuggle fungus, what kind of level of government surveillance does that take? Because that's kind of an oddball thing.
It would be fascinating if they just were digging through their luggage and found some weird test tubes, or what that looked like. I'm not familiar with the details of that situation of how they found it.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure where they found it or what it was in or anything. I thought one of them said it was in a shoe or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's correct. They were hiding it in a shoe or something, and I think that was probably one of the things that caused alarm.
Right.
That shows some consciousness of guilt.
Fair enough. They probably thought it was drugs at first, to be completely honest. You know,
it's possible.
Probably like, this person's hiding drugs in their shoe. You know, let's analyze it, and maybe they figured out it was, you know, something else.
Bombs in their underwear, fungus in their shoes.
Fungus.
So, congratulations TSA for finding that, but how much stuff did they not find? That's a little concerning. So, how do we guard against this? And I can't come up with a better solution other than storing lots and lots of food, which is kind of troublesome. It's bulky. It takes up a lot of space in your home. But if we have massive crop failures and money, prep,
I mean, homesteading used to be a very common thing. Now it's not.
Sure.
What happened to that? I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. I guess. Well, I mean, there's still, I guess a certain culture out there that does it, but it's probably
You
not
have to
as.
have a tremendous amount of time to be able to do that, though,
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
and to do it right. With my
Maybe it's worth it,
lifestyle,
though.
the way I work, there's no possible way I could grow anything.
Right.
That's the shift in, the way people live. And I mean, look from
Exactly.
300 years ago to now, right? Used to be you had to grow almost all your food and trade it for stuff. And nowadays it's walk down to the grocery store and you've got 800 different options for diapers. I don't know, take your pick, anything.
Yeah.
So,
I can go into town and buy locally grown vegetables all day long this time of year. You can't do that in the wintertime.
yeah.
Over on Instagram, so Inbrew is asking the question, why is it all the farms that China owns in the U.S. are near major U.S. bases? I've heard that. I haven't really looked into it to confirm how much of that is or isn't true. So I don't really know. I can't say. I don't know if any of you guys have looked into that.
I saw a map or a meme or something on it the other day.
Same. That's about it.
But I mean, why
If
would they
true.
allow it to begin?
Yeah, I mean, if it's true, then it's probably because communists like to play the long game.
Right. Is it a thing of the government, keep your friends close or your enemies close and your friends closer type thing, or what? I don't know.
And another comment from Shane on Instagram. So rice and beans are cheap, and learn how to turn thumbs green or network. That's the hardest part, is building people. Yeah, it is hard to. I think that's true with anything. It's hard to get people to organize, and I mean, look how hard it is just to get people to prepare for hurricanes. I mean, you know all about that, living in South Carolina, and every year there's
You can't get people to
something.
prepare for a snowstorm.
You can't.
It's ridiculous. Yeah. So
Well, they'll be more than happy to run to the Costco and buy all the toilet paper when the time comes.
The bread and
not
milk.
again.
So, but I want to talk about real solutions here. We don't have to know for sure that there are sleeper cells, but probably are. Maybe they're not. But why does every church in America not have a safety plan, a safety team, security guards?
For the same reason, in general, people don't prepare for snowstorms and hurricanes.
Some of them are
do.
starting to develop security plans, meaning
Some.
churches.
But why is this not just a thing that happens everywhere? Why not 100%?
Especially when they
baffles
can,
me.
especially when they can run encrypted comms. They can set up an LMR frequency and get that going very easily. That is
Sure.
available to churches and schools, and they can run 256-bit encryption on their radios. And an application like that is totally warranted, because you don't want people eavesdropping on what your security team in the church is talking about. And I mean, I don't know shit about security teams, but Jared, you could probably explain how one is formed, and it could probably be some of the parishioners and just members of the church that could make that up, I would imagine.
Well, yeah, you could, but you have to get people willing to do that, be part of a security team.
Yeah.
And willing to train, willing to shoot, willing to take a life in the defense of their parishioners or whatnot. And that's hard to do.
They're entirely different places. Like my church has, no firearm signs, which in the state of South Carolina are enforceable.
Crazy.
And then you've got other churches like that I know of, that they encourage people to bring in their CCW permits, and as soon as the church just simply knows you have one, if you wanted to, they'll have you let you carry in church, just so they know how many people are doing it. And their goal is to actually keep a minimum number of people carrying in the service. And that goes back to, what was that? 6 or 7 years ago. That guy tried to break out an AK or a shotgun or something like that in a church in Texas. And before that guy could get his first round off, it was like 8 dudes in the pews around him. It was like 80 rounds the guy ate. Like,
Yeah.
if you're not out there to protect yourself and your family and your loved ones, who's going to do it for you?
What is the rationale? I'm just curious about your church, behind your church not allowing firearms. Is this a state law that they're complying with? Or is this actually what their policy internally?
It's their policy. But in the state of South Carolina, the signs with the the pistols with the red slash through it, like no firearms allowed, those signs are enforceable in the state of South Carolina. So if a business or anyone has that sign posted, it has to be obviously posted. Yeah, that one. Obviously posted by all main entrances, and they're legally enforceable.
I think Costco's notorious for that, aren't they?
I don't know.
Yeah,
Costco?
I think
Carrying Costco either way.
Sure.
yeah, I think if you go outside of Costco, usually you'll see a sign that says no firearms.
Asinine.
Yeah, there are other states where those signs are not enforceable. There are some states where they are enforceable. So if you decide to conceal carry a firearm anywhere you go, know the rules. Know the rules. If you're not going to follow them,
If it's concealed, they're not going to know you have it either way. So
yeah, you never know. People are idiots. You got to be careful.
I can't wrap my brain around that mindset at all. It doesn't create a magic barrier against violence.
But it doesn't?
This is just,
oh my gosh.
It's just inarguable. So the fact that we still have people who are, I'm sure, fully capable of watching the news and seeing what is happening, and it's not terribly limited. I mean, these things happen in every state of the union, and I just can't imagine. I can't understand why this happens anywhere. Why does every school not have an armed guard or two?
We do.
Why do they stop?
Like a 2-man security team. I don't think they carry anything, not that I've noticed, but they also never go inside the building during service.
And what good is that?
I don't know.
None.
Yeah. And I don't want to put you in a place where you have to, potentially say something negative about your church. I'm just fascinated by this mindset, and it's not just one place.
Curious to ask them what the point is, but I haven't done it. So
yeah.
Looks like Alpha Charlie Concepts says not enforceable here in Florida.
Well, it's Florida, of course.
Here in Virginia, there's a state law that you're not allowed to carry in places of worship unless you feel that it is necessary.
Well, there we go.
That's always necessary. Done.
Exactly.
What?
So we're going off feelings, are we?
Right. Yes. I mean, it's stupid.
I'm always scared for my life. Therefore,
exactly.
I always pack it.
Well,
go ahead. I could really go into the weeds on this, and I find it fascinating. I think we can look, if for a Christian church, I cannot understand this because Christ literally said, "Sell your clothes and buy a sword." He presumably prioritized having a self-defense weapon above, like, even having clothing, and he was very clearly referring to a literal sword. Mormon churches, I've encountered some Mormons who are very anti-weapon, anti-violence, and that even more baffles me because just very recently in the history of our country, I believe Missouri had a kill order, a bounty for Mormons. So we are so close to that in our history. I'm not a Mormon, but any Christian church that prohibits firearms, when we were told to carry weapons by Christ, was one of the last things he said in his earthly ministry. I can't understand that. I can't understand why somebody would selectively ignore that. We have the book of Ecclesiastes, where presumably it was written by Solomon. He said there is a time to kill. We know that the word used in Exodus 20 in the 10 Commandments was likely referring to murder rather than just killing.
You should do marketing
in general
for the NRA, dude.
I'm just reaching out to my fellow Christians out there to try to understand this better, because we have what seems like the Bible's not always very clear, if you haven't noticed, but this seems to be one of the clearest things that we can find. And I don't think Jesus was referring metaphorically to sell your clothes and buy a sword, because they held up 2 literal swords, the apostles, right? And they were like, how about this? And he's like, yeah, that's good. So he did not take that opportunity to admonish them and say, you idiots, I was talking metaphorically about the truth or whatever. He was talking about literal weapons. Have literal weapons. And why is any Christian church on the planet Earth just selectively ignoring that? It seems so clear.
Have any of you ever run into any anti-2A ham radio operators?
I would say so. Yeah.
Have you? Yeah.
I mean,
few, but I don't think there was ever an issue made of it or anything like that.
I saw your
I've come into one
live stream with Rita the other day. But like you say, there's different clicks, and most people try to avoid that. But let's be honest, it's a great way to describe it. And yeah, there are some people who believe it's straight for fun and hobby use, while you have others who are like MCOM related, right?
Right.
Those hobbyists will probably tend to be more liberal, and that's their choice, and that's fine. Then you have the MCOM guys, right, who are trying to get more prepared for disasters, and that's typically more of a right-leaning type of thing, right? In which case, you'll typically find more 2A supporters. So you'll find them both, I think, for sure.
Alpha Charlie's Concept says that anti-gun radio operators, heck yeah. I've run into 2. But that's a small sample size out of like all of the ham radio or just radio-oriented people I've met.
I mean, if you've ever listened to 7.2 megahertz, you know there's going to be some anti-gun operators on that frequency as well.
What happens on there? I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, I'm not either.
That is like the cesspool of ham radio, where they get in there and they just start swear. You have to listen to it at night. It's awful.
All right, I'll tune in tonight.
Channel 6 or something like that. The Super Bowl guys, same thing.
So it's like the CB of HF or something.
It is.
I see.
They're always in there fighting about politics and.
Really?
Oh yeah, it's quite comical.
I don't.
Well, I know what I'm doing this evening.
It's every night. It's every night.
Getting drunk and listening to HF. Yeah.
Hey, those guys have nothing else to do. All right, they've worked the rest of their lives. They got nothing to do but sit around these days.
And you have to stay off their frequency. It's their frequency.
Yeah. Well, it's their frequency. Yeah.
Yeah.
They own it.
Yeah, it's. I don't know. Like we were saying, that live you brought up with Ria's Ham Shack. There are clicks, certainly, but I think everything really is kind of relative. I mean, it's the same with firearms. You find a lot of people in the firearms world that have a lot of different opinions as to what they think you should and shouldn't have. There's people who have served in the military that don't think you should own a firearm. There's I've met people that think everyone should just have a single shot and that's it. And then, Handsome Drew said, there's people that, essentially, pretty much everything along those lines, there's a whole myriad of opinions, but it is weird to me, I think, when I run across like anti-2A hams, because it doesn't seem like, it seems like the amateur radio world would be a little bit more conservative and I guess right-leaning to me, but maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe you're wrong. I don't know.
I might be.
I guess there's no political test to take along with the technician test, so I guess it could take all kinds. But you're right. It does seem like most of the folks seem to be more conservative leaning that I encounter in the amateur radio sphere.
Yeah. But I mean, it is full of clicks, and you never know who you're going to get. And
well, you're going to get clicks in any group, no matter what it is.
Yep.
So what else can we be doing to prepare? We can. I want real solutions. So I'm thinking about that attack in Boulder, Colorado, where the guy was throwing firebombs. He was throwing homemade incendiary hand grenades. We use this cute little word Molotov cocktail, but I'm just thinking, how could that be avoided? This was a religious themed event, and there again, these are magnets for this type of extremist attack. Maybe those types of events should have
don't attend those events.
either don't attend them, or if you're going to, maybe those events should have guards posted.
Are you looking for prevention or protecting yourself too? Like it all depends on which aspect.
Sure. Well, I think in any group of any type, you're going to have people who just won't arm themselves, and maybe of course not everybody's obligated to do that, but shouldn't there be at least a couple guys who can have their head on a swivel, be looking out, maybe not solely focused on the event, but looking out into the periphery for something like that? Who's going to pay? Well, I think we have a fantastic history of volunteerism when it comes to this type of thing in America.
The problem with volunteerism with security like that is liability.
Yep.
I mean, it's a huge liability risk, and then there's a criminal risk in it, or not. I don't want to say criminal risk, but there's a risk of charges being filed against the security person.
There are,
no doubt.
They don't have the proper training, they don't have the proper experience, they don't have this and that and the certification, and
well, you're damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Exactly.
Yep.
So if you don't, maybe sometimes you get set on fire by guys with bottles full of gasoline with rags.
That's a hard thing. I mean, Phil here makes a good point. Be aware of your surroundings, and it's unfortunately that's probably the answer, because I don't know how much preparing you can really do for some person in a crowd that wants to throw a Molotov cocktail on you. I mean,
so there's two types of people, and it's funny because I'm one and my wife is the other. She's very, the world is a field of roses, right? And everything's great. And there's me thinking everybody's out to get me, right? But it's funny because, we were in like Walmart down here a few months ago, and I tend to tail, 3 to 4 or 5 feet behind her, not like right against her, but, creating space. So if something comes up or I got room, whatever else. And we walk in the store, we're going down one of the aisles, and I noticed these 3 guys walk in the store. They're all wearing like masks. So one dude's got like a whole neck gaiter on, a hat on. Like, what are these guys doing? And they immediately hard right and go to one of the corners in the store. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Of course, beware your surroundings. Just like the guy said, rule number 1, identify the threat. That is a possible threat. I'm keeping tabs on it. Right? We keep going around. And of course, I create a little bit of space to see type of reactions. She has our, I don't know, at the time, 8 months old, right? A mother, young child. That is a very vulnerable combo right there. She exits the aisle right before I do. And I saw one of the guys take a step or two towards our direction. Then I stepped out from the aisle completely, and they stopped and went back into the corner. I don't know what their intentions were. I don't know what they're up to. We checked out and we left. She checked out.
Smart.
She checked out for the most part with our daughter, which is a strain on her. And she was a little upset, like why I didn't help as much. But she had the kid, which is part of her distraction, checking out. My distraction was keeping tabs on these guys I thought were sketch and also checking out. And after we got to the car, I was like, hey, did you not notice this? And she's like, no.
Well, unfortunately, one of the things that COVID normalized was people wearing masks. There's still lots of people that do it. I see it all the time. And I think it's weird, but unfortunately,
if
when you're
somebody's
walking
got
around,
the sniffles,
and
they want to go buy their medicine at the store,
it doesn't raise alarm bells with a lot of people,
But a ski mask is something different.
It was
the turtleneck pulled up to hide your face is different, but a surgical mask because I need to go buy my sniffles medication and I don't want to infect everybody. I get that. I actually kind of like that. I kind of like not getting sick everywhere I go from people who need to go out in public all sick. But yeah, the ski mask that's definitely something that should be keyed in on.
It's unlike 2020, 2021, right, where everyone needed them and they were not available. You can find N95 masks in almost every store nowadays. So if you get sick, you can go buy one if you want to have one, and that's about it. something fell off with these guys. I don't know. That's the story about me saying you need to watch out for yourself, take care of yourself, and take care for those people you love because no one's going to do it for you.
It's always good to trust your gut. I do too. If something doesn't feel right, then I'll leave and take off. And I think that's a choice everyone has to make individually for sure.
I'd rather be wrong than regret it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember one time I was out with some friends years and years ago, and we were all going to go to this bar and just hang out and shoot the shit. And I had a really just bad feeling. And I even remarked to one of my friends at the time, like, this just isn't our night to be out. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just paranoid. So we went to this bar, and then we decided to leave a little bit early. And we were going to stay probably another 30 minutes, but something happened and we had to get back. But had we stayed the 30 minutes longer, there was a gunfight right on the fucking sidewalk of the bar. And it was a big deal. And, as we were walking back, we saw all these police cars and, just the police helicopter. Everything was just headed towards that area. And we're like, oh, I wonder what that was. And then later on, we're like, turn on the news and we realized what had happened. And these two guys just got in a fight over some chick or something. And one shot the other. And it freaked my friend out because he's like, man, right before we left, you were like, hey, something feels weird, and I don't know, that was just my gut instinct. And I don't know. It's weird when you get feelings like that. But speaking of, I don't know, this kind of segues into regular Drew's question about what can we do to prepare. So during this Israeli-Iran conflagration, whatever you want to call it, AP reported that as a result of the war between Israel and Iran, and I'll throw that up here real quick, Iranian citizens were experiencing, I think that's changed in the last probably 24 hours, but a near communications blackout. They were unable to connect not only to the outside world, but also with their neighbors and loved ones across the country. And let's see, I have one other piece of information for you. So another source that confirmed the internet blackout is NetBlocks. So they tout themselves as this like global internet watchdog that monitors like cybersecurity, internet connectivity, and one of their focuses is tracking internet shutdowns and censorship. And so this is one of the things that they were talking about recently. And so on their site as of June 20th, there is network data which supports the claim that Iran has been largely offline for approximately 60 hours. I guess one question that I have for all of you is, do you think current events like this are scaring people back into prepping and communications? Or do you think that, once this all, I don't want to say blows over, but once it's done with and maybe they do reach some sort of peace agreement and the attack on our bases in the Middle East were just a way of Iran saving face? Do you think people will get complacent again, or do you think maybe this will motivate people to actually, take prepping a little bit more seriously?
I don't think anybody's not been complacent about it, because Trump's in office now and everybody's like, oh, we can relax. Trump's our president. I can't tell you how many times I've seen or heard that, oh, well, we don't need to prepare anymore because Trump's there. He'll save us.
Hey, I'm not complaining. Ammo is actually becoming affordable again.
Right.
Say it, now it won't be. Come on.
It's only the serious people that are really into the training and staying prepared, not necessarily homesteading or whatnot, but staying prepared and keeping your kid up to spec and in order. Those are the non-complacent types. Those are the only ones that are going to continue to do what they do. When everybody else feels safe and comfortable and the government's here to help them, and I'm talking both sides of the aisle here, they stop caring about protecting themselves because the government's going to be there to help them. And they couldn't be more wrong.
Looks like you have someone in agreement with you. Jared is spot on. I've heard that a ton myself. Yeah, I haven't heard it a lot. I've heard a couple of people say that, which is kind of what prompted me to ask that question, because I thought it was odd. Just because the guy that you like is in office doesn't mean that you're safe. He's not going to keep you out of the path of danger necessarily. I mean,
No.
well, I mean, he campaigned on not starting any new wars, and we jumped into this thing with Israel, and no matter what your political feelings are about it, that is diametrically opposed to what he was saying before.
I don't know. Sometimes, and I have mixed feelings on it. Sometimes you have to hit first in order to stop a war from happening too. And that might be the case on this. I don't know.
I think a lot of this comes back to like human psychology. And people are inherently lazy. It's just a fact. And being prepared means you have to put work in and effort. And for most people, they don't want to do that. It's easier to be complacent or ignorance is bliss and just choose to not accept that those things are out there. Do I think that they're out there at the extent that some people say those problems are going to be there? No, I don't think they're going to be that bad. But being generally prepared for everything is not a bad thing.
This one's an interesting comment as well. So Alpha Charlie says, I've had friends who are instructors who have had students canceling back out of classes, basically, citing that very reason. You make a good point, because that happened after 2020. I mean, during the George Floyd riots, I mean, remember how many people were flocking to gun stores? There were lines around the corner to get in. And I mean, hell, you were lucky to find a High Point, depending on where you lived. And I'm not knocking High Points. I know. They're the
You can knock High Points.
Well, some people like the little carbines that they make, but I digress. Anyway, but there were, lines around the fucking corner to pick up a firearm. And
how many of those people actually took that gun when they got it home and took it outside and go shoot, or took it?
Well, but that's what I was saying. That's what I'm getting to, is that after all of that was over, people started trading them back in. You started seeing them on the market again, and people weren't as interested in defending themselves.
Right.
So go ahead. No, I yield to the smarter Drew.
Oh, thank you. I was gonna say, it's that effort that takes to train, right? The first step was to get that hardware you're gonna use to protect yourself. But then they fell back into being complacent and lazy and just didn't want to learn it, didn't want to practice it, and therefore it was just sitting there. And then they see it as this just reminds me that I'm not doing what I should have been doing, so let me just get rid of it, and now that's fine.
On Instagram, Galvestar3030 says the freeway 2 blocks for me was taken over during those protests. Yeah, and that's the thing. And just because it's been 5 years or whatever, doesn't mean it can't happen again. I mean, as we saw recently, with the that's what we mentioned earlier, the ICE raids, the deportations. I mean, I don't think those protests are going to go away this summer. At least I don't think so. I could be wrong, and hopefully I am. But I don't know. It seems like with the Israeli-Iran thing, people kind of stopped paying attention to those protests. But if this thing is over, I would imagine attention would go back to that.
I mean,
they're planning another one. They're planning another one for July 17.
I was about to say, it was just a scheduled weekend for those protests. The nice thing is they schedule them so you can know when they're happening. That's a pro. Look into it.
Right.
But that let me know there were two scheduled within 15 miles of my home address. So,
we had a No Kings protest just in town here. Last weekend or weekend before, whatever that was.
Yeah, it was like
And it
2.
ended
And
up
we
being
2 of them
nothing.
killed. And my wife was like, "Oh, I want to go out and do this," and I'm like, "We're avoiding that section of town for the next 48 hours. Like, we're not doing that." He's like, "I want to go to the store," and I was like, "You're not going anywhere if I'm not there for this weekend. Like, I'm sorry, but yeah, that's what it is." And we were driving to take the kid to a little plaything, and we passed a small group of protesters next to the road. They were peaceful. Most of the protests were peaceful. I hope that all protests are peaceful, but in the event that they turn south, that happens really quickly. I'm going to avoid those areas altogether, not even put myself in that risk.
Smart.
I went to so we had one here in Reno, and I live streamed it because I just wanted to show people what was happening in my community. And I didn't go and offer any opinions or anything like that. I just live streamed it. That was it. Never been to anything like that. I was really nervous just because I'm like, I don't want to get into. I'm 45 years old. I've got like $1,000 deductible for insurance. I don't need to get into any fights, right? But no, I went. It was actually pretty peaceful. People weren't really starting any shit. I was not sure what to expect. But I pretty
Reno's
much
generally pretty peaceful and quiet to begin with.
Well, one of the things that I noticed immediately was how many people brought dogs, and there was a large number of elderly people there. And this isn't a given, but my thought was, okay, if there's a bunch of old people here, I don't think these people are going to kick anything off and risk putting those people in harm's way because they're props right now. And it would look really bad if they start fucking riot, downtown, and the police had to come in and tear gas somebody's grandmother. So I figured that I would just leave once it was over, which was around 1:00, I believe, and so that's when I took off. But it seemed like it was pretty mellow. There was one guy that was. This guy had balls. Like, he was trying to convert everyone to Jesus Christ, and got into a huge argument with some dude, and it lasted for a few minutes. And I was a little worried that they were going to jump on this guy, but they didn't. They de-escalated, and everyone went their own separate ways. But that was really the biggest dust up the entire time. But that doesn't mean it's always going to be peaceful. Back in 2020, when they had protests for George Floyd, it was not peaceful. They wrecked quite a bit of shit downtown. They set people's cars on fire, broke windows, you name it, graffitied, everything you could think of. And I guess at one point they thought they were going to, lay siege to downtown. But that's what made me nervous, because I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if that shit was going to happen, or if it was going to be cool during the day, and then they were going to do something afterwards at night. But because that's how it happened last time in 2020. But I don't know. I mean, I want to kind of go back to regular Drew's question about how do we prepare. So let's say this thing with Iran doesn't go away, and we end up in a protracted conflict in the Middle East, and our infrastructure and communications are affected by like cyber attacks and terrorism. I think it's in people's best interest. And even if this Iran thing doesn't happen, it could be protests, civil unrest, to start community comms planning now, and not have all your communications eggs in one basket with your cell phone. And I'm not saying that amateur radio, CB, GMRS, mesh networks, all that shit's going to save the world. But being able to have communications among your neighbors is better than nothing. And, which is what people in Iran have right now. If you happen to be depending on the internet and cell networks for communications and news, those people are kind of in a rock and a hard place. I don't know if you guys have ever looked up how many amateur radio operators are actually in Iran, but depending on what source you look at, it's anywhere from 32 to 3.
Huh?
Yeah. I was looking at that last night. I was trying to find any information that I could find on how many amateur radio operators.
It was probably 32 until they found out and started chopping heads, and now there's 3.
Supposedly, I think as of a year or two ago, they tried to set up like an amateur radio group, like with the ARL or something. But I think there's somewhere around 1,900 amateur radio operators. And I'm talking about people with a license. I'm not talking about people with equipment throughout the Middle East. There's around 1,900 or so. I don't know how many people in Iran there are with the gear that could do all the shit that we do and get news and information, but they don't exactly hand out amateur radio licenses there. Apparently, they like to keep comms on a lockdown. But do you guys have any advice or ideas about how neighbors can get organized now? And if so, what equipment would they need?
We could talk about this alone for hours. So there's one thing.
You have to get them interested in it first. That's the biggest hurdle, is getting them interested in it and committed to some level of it for it to even be remotely effective.
Well, here's a question on Instagram that's related. What would be an example? This is from Inbrew. What would be an example of a PACE plan for unrest?
An example of a PACE plan for unrest. Well, I can tell you what my PACE plan is. Our primary is cell phones.
All
with
my power
signal.
just went out. I'll be right back.
Well, it looks like your PACE plan's working. Oh, all right. Hey, well, so I'll just share my PACE plan real quick, and it's not just for unrest; it's for everything. It's for if some farmer digs up the fiber optic line. It's for if we have 6 days of a power outage in a snowstorm or whatever. So primary is cell phones. We use a Signal app, and if our, and my wife and I check in throughout the day. And when my kids are old enough to have cell phones, they'll check in with us too if they're off doing, whatever activity. And you've got a double check mark system in the Signal app, right? So you can see if your message even got out, and then you can see if it was received. And if you've got some sort of obstruction with that double check mark system, that's when we start using radios, right? So our alternate is amateur radio. So my wife and I are both techs. And so that works out really well. And we have a digital system. All of our vehicles have a digital system set up in it. I've got a digital system right here behind me. And so that actually works really well because it's kind of simulates that text message type of environment, right? I think a lot of guys with wives who struggle to get them into radio, I think wives don't love talking on the radio very often. If that's kind of my best estimate of just do surveying various guys. Wives just don't typically like talking on the radio, and that's fine. So what I've done to mitigate that is I've created this text message system. My wife loves texting, and she just doesn't love having her voice heard on the radio. So that's cool. That was my challenge, to find a way around that. And when my kids start getting old enough that they're going to go off on their own and do various activities, I'm going to ask them to get amateur licensed. But if they're not willing, I'm not going to force somebody to do something that they find miserable. We've always got GMRS2, so that's another alternate. So our primary cell phones, our alternate is amateur radio. I can hear your UPS is beeping back there.
You can see my prepared.
You look prepared to me.
Gone.
Anyway.
I think Reno just got nuked.
So contingency also, just like the smarter Drew over there said, WinLink is fantastic, and especially for communicating with those family members who are not licensees outside of a disaster area. WinLink is just spectacular. It excels for that. So if you can reach out of that disaster zone or whatever zone you're in that's having this disruption and send emails, that's incredible. And then as far as emergency, that last letter there, it's going to be whatever works. I don't know exactly what the emergency looks, if there's a one specific emergency, but in terms of like reaching out to like the local dispatch, our local dispatch is on analog FM, so they publish their frequencies online. So reaching out to reach the law enforcement or fire or medical, I guess we could maybe file that under the emergency category. It just takes a little bit of time and study and programming to make sure you've got a radio that can reach out to them in that dire emergency. I don't know. What do you guys think? What kind of PACE planning do you all have?
Unfortunately,
if you're going to talk to public safety on the radio, you better have a damn good emergency.
You're not wrong. Yeah, I agree. And that would be the emergency, right?
You're right.
Yeah, no, I mean, I look at was it Western North Carolina hurricane last year? Did you guys see the map that came out after that of the WinLink connections that were made 72 hours following?
No.
So they did one of what WinLink connections looked like for a 24-hour period a week before, and it was dead, like 3 lines, nothing. The 72 hours after, it was a huge splotch of just white everywhere. Where the first 72 hours, almost all communications in and out of Western North Carolina were with WinLink. And I know guys, I had family members who hopped in trucks and drove down there and was helping with the recovery efforts. There's actually a picture of my father down there with his search and rescue dog looking for survivors. But at the end of the day is you talk to those guys and they'll go, oh yeah, my neighbor just threw his Baofeng UV5R at me. And that's how we were talking for the first 72 hours, right? One of those neighbors decided to be prepared for something. And that guy started throwing his radios at people. And that's how they communicated for a few days. So anything and everything works. And also, if somebody says their phone, their cell phone isn't their primary, they're kidding themselves because phones are definitely the primary.
And they should be. They work really well and they're convenient.
99% of the time, they're fantastic. I agree. But then it's the people who choose to ignore having the rest of the PACE plan because their phone does it all. That's where the problem really lies. So,
let's say we've got that person who just can't step past the cell phone. Maybe their alternate considerations would be, how do we charge this cell phone? Do we have enough battery banks? Do we have a car charger?
Yep.
I think that is something that people miss out on a lot. So, I don't know.
For sure. Part of my radio bag that, if you look at my Instagram, I got carried around with me. It's got all the charger cables that I need. It's got a power bank on it with a solar panel, one of those fancy little things. I just got it. Super excited to have it. But like, I carry a bag with me that keeps me capable of doing digital, analog, charging my devices off a battery bank with a solar panel on it, like every day. I carry that with me all the time. And people look at me, sure, they give me funny looks. But if I need that bag, it's on me. And they can give me funny looks all they want.
Now, do you all do anything with satellite, Starlink, or
not yet?
Any sort of sat phone? I can't bring myself to spend more money on more satellite stuff. We've got a satellite, we got a Starlink dish at home, which is great. That's certainly part of our plan. But to get the mini or to get a I can't remember what a satellite phone. I can't bring myself to spend more money every month on something like that.
That's where networking, like Shane MPS talked about, comes into play. I don't need to have everything, but I need someone who has those type of assets.
Sure.
And do I know anyone right now who has one nearby? No, I can't say I do. I would love to. Hey, if anybody's down here near Charleston, South Carolina, who wants to hook up with me and be prepared together, reach out to me on Instagram. Bring resources together. Not everyone has to have everything. Build a team of guys who might have one or two of these bits and pieces and work together, and you'll be amazed at what you can accomplish together.
And it's hard to find people to put a local team together.
It is.
Even regional, we'll say within 100 miles radius of your location. It's hard to find somebody.
I've got a few groups. You just got to be willing to really reach out to people. I've got one in North Carolina, pretty much just straight up the coast, that I've actually been in contact with recently. And they seem like a good group of guys. Actually, they're looking to come down and do some training here shortly. So I'm really hoping to hook up with them at one point. There's a group that's somewhere up near Greenville doing stuff. It's a 3-hour drive for me. I'm not doing that. But have them on standby. At least be friends with them, right? Because if something happens, my first move is to get my family in the car and get them to safety. I've got 2 teams now, one north and one west that I can move. Obviously, I can't go east because the whole ocean's right there. So I've only got 3 directions to go, and 2 of them are covered. So if
my little training group, they're in Indiana, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, and one's in Georgia. He's flying. We ought to get together at my place in my Pittsburgh house a couple times a year and do some training and some FTXs and whatnot. but that's the only group I've been able to get any kind of consistency out of. It's so
A
hard
few
to get
good
that.
men.
Yeah, it just
You find those few good men, and I'll tell you, I've interacted with some teams too that were so unstable that I just decided not to ever talk to them again. So that's another dynamic in that as well. You got to kind of put your finger on the pulse of how they're actually thinking. And if you find those people who are just itching to drop the hammer on someone, that's nobody I really want around me when times get stressful.
Yeah,
They have to be reliable.
Right. And stable.
So
I think we're just down to the Drews now. What on earth?
what is up with that, huh?
So you brought up WinLink, and before the disaster, there wasn't a whole lot of activity. I think that's such a shame because it takes some practice. It takes some consistent use of that system to know where the nodes are that you can actually hit, the gateways.
It was
And
the 24 to 72 hours before. Keep that in mind.
okay, fair enough.
So there's the normal communications versus when things kicked off. And I'll tell you from experience where I've finally gotten to connecting with WinLink on a regular basis ish. And it's definitely harder out in the field. So if you're not like trying to do that, which I definitely need to do that more. Like I just don't do it enough. I was supposed to do it today because if you saw my Instagram, I've actually been doing a series on WinLink and getting things set up.
Sweet.
It's just my first video got like 1,000, 2,000 views almost, and then it tanked off from there. But as long as the right people who are wanting to do that, if I can convince 5 people from those videos to get into it and get started instead of shying away from it, like that's a success if you ask me. But no, yeah, it was a huge thing. And a lot of people don't know what WinLink is capable of. If you have a strong connection, you can pull weather reports for your weather in your local area for the next week. You can pull radar images. You can pull satellite images. You just have to know which catalog requests to use to do that. And you don't have to connect to a station to play with that. You can use the telnet. Telnet, I tell people, you like learn WinLink first, then learn to connect with it, because you can do so much stuff with a lot of those tools. But if you don't know the software is capable of it, you're already limiting yourself.
Have you played with SailDocs through WinLink?
No, I haven't, not yet.
Are you familiar with it?
No, not really.
Okay, SailDocs is amazing. If you go to saildocs.org, you can find more information about it. Or if you send an email to query@saildocs.com, maybe it's saildocs.com, I apologize. Do a search for it if you're out there and interested in this. It's called SailDocs, DOCS. And so it will actually take some websites and just convert them down into text only, and it'll email that text output to you. So that is a real force multiplier with using the WinLink system, because you can be completely out of cell range and internet range and still get some information that's tied to the internet.
Yeah, no, you've got, what is it? I did live with Gridbase. They do like the little off-grid internet.
Oh, cool.
Like hubs.
Very good.
And was it Rain, something like that? RAIN. They also do roughly the same thing.
Cool.
But like there are options for all sorts of stuff. But like you're pointing out, is there's so many cool things out there, but if you don't hear about them, you don't know about them, you're not even going to start looking into the process of how to use it.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
made it back.
Welcome.
Hey, welcome
You're a
back.
little echoey, but we're happy to see your face.
we can see your blow up dolls and sex robots in the background now that you don't have your green screen on.
How's that?
To my kids who
I
are
had
watching,
to-
I'm not explaining any of that to you.
So I had to. Speaking of preparedness,
Ask your mom.
Whole neighborhoods out. So not sure
We
how
just
long
figured that
lasts.
Iran nuked Reno.
Which we were okay with, to be honest.
Were you? Good, good. Bless your heart, both of you. Bless your hearts. But I do have all of this shit running on my backup power, so
Nice.
that worked out, huh?
Good
Awesome.
job. Not too bad. Your timing was good.
Well,
I got a few comments on my Instagram.
Yeah.
District 47 US said after years of searching, I finally got a group of 6 guys with diverse skills and the same mindset. That's awesome.
Awesome.
If you guys haven't seen any of District 47 US's products, I actually really appreciate that guy. Shane,
Can you say that slower?
Oh,
District
yeah,
4.
District 47.us.
Ah.
I have a bunch of his little knickknacks and gizmos. This one's an Anderson power pole to Wago connector. So if I damage
nice.
a battery in the process of being in the field, just cut it off, just snap them back on there, and I'm back to power, either radio or battery side, doesn't matter.
It's brilliantly simple.
He makes a bunch of cool little products. I carry a ton of them in my stuff. I'd have to go through and find them all, but like I carry them. Anyways, then Shane MPS said that he needs more people in Ohio. Enbrew 875 just let me know that he's in between me and Greenville right now, and that looks like about it. So,
to get it back to the original question, what do we do to prepare it? I think the right answer is you have to prepare for yourself and what your needs and wants are, and what's going to make you comfortable and allow you to survive. Because what's going to allow me to survive and be comfortable is not going to be the same for somebody else to be able to survive and be comfortable. So it's very important that you get together with these groups and train, even if the training isn't really pertinent to what your needs are, you're still going to get something out of it and be able to take some of that knowledge and information and translate it back over to your side of things.
Yeah, for sure. Like the very beginning of this feed, Shane MPS, he was with me at that FTX I did last year. I'm in South Carolina. They're up in Ohio. How often do you think I train with them?
Never.
Once a year.
Right.
I'm kidding. But somehow I still end up being more involved than some of the guys. So, like, bottom line is if I needed something, if I needed help, reach out. Somebody would probably pack into a vehicle and try to figure it out for me, possibly. But
another thought I have on this team dynamic, is making yourself as valuable as you can be for a team. Make yourself actually desirable to be on a team, right? It's not all just about what that team can do for you, but what can you do for that team? So are you taking some classes? Are you taking things like Stop the Bleed? Are you taking some tactical courses, some legal courses on self-defense, maybe some wilderness survival courses, whatever that looks like for you? Are you going to be an asset to that team? What are you doing that would make them want you?
So in my little training group that I have, there's 11 of us. Everybody has their specified ancillary duty that they're responsible for. One guy's a training officer, one guy is a comms guy, one guy is our navigation officer. We have a safety officer. We have all these little ancillary jobs that everybody does prior to any training event that we get together with, or an FTX, and they all compile their information into one big report, and we use that to basically a mission briefing or a training briefing at the beginning. So everybody has input as to what we're doing, how we're going to do it, and it keeps everybody somewhat kind of committed to it and active, rather than just standing by and just letting the team run itself, because the team's not going to run itself. It's going to die off if you don't have the commitment and the information coming into it for all these events that you want to do.
Makes a lot of sense.
yeah, you also don't have to be going to the event to help put some of the planning together.
Absolutely not. I mean, the way we have it set up, our navigation guy, he's in Georgia. You know, he can compile maps for us and route planning for us and pace plans for routes, and do satellite imaging and do all the map intelligence that goes into it. We have two guys that do intelligence type work, whether it's getting information from local government as to what resources are available in whatever area we're going to be operating in, searching Facebook groups in that area just to kind of get the feel for the area. We have all those things in place, or they're being put in place. We're still kind of new at it, but we're working on on all this outside information that we can gather prior to getting together in person, face to face.
Nice.
So as I sit here, I'm looking at Ring. Our entire community has a Ring device, and they're all, that's how they all share information, but they're all asking each other if everyone else's power is out, which it obviously is. But it's kind of interesting that, that's like kind of the first form of communication that people seem to jump to around here when, like we have snowstorms, knocks out the power all the time, high wind, all that stuff. It's not uncommon. But that's usually the first mode of communication that I see people jump on, which is the Ring app, and they share information that way. But we'll see how long this goes. But if the internet's not working, you're kind of in a jam.
What does your backup system look like? Obviously, it's working really well.
It is a hodgepodge of battery packs that I built. I've got some batteries also down here as another backup. And
is it an inverter?
Yeah, I've got an inverter with a bunch of batteries, and then this one right here, there's 3 battery packs that I built that I can charge my laptops, my radios, everything. They've got little USB ports and all kinds of shit. And then over there, I've got 3 generators. So if I need to run my freezer, my fridge, my house, I can do that.
Awesome.
And then I have fuel back there as well. And one of my generators works off of propane as well. So I can run off gas, I can run off propane, and I can do this for a little while.
Yeah, I just got fixed up with the generator finally after months of getting it going and getting a power company to install my trifecta transfer switch, which goes out actually into the meter where the meter is installed in the house. It plugs in there and it's got an outlet on the bottom of it for the generator output cable. It's pretty cool, but I finally got hooked up for that. I was debating if I was going to do it or not, because instead of just investing into that, I looked into what the infrastructure for my neighborhood looked like for electrical power and what the odds were that it goes out. And it's honestly pretty robust here. Most of the power lines that come into the neighborhood are all, like to the homes, it's all underground. The substation that tops off of the 4160 volt lines, the high tension, high voltage lines, is right in our neighborhood. And the high voltage lines run through our neighborhood. So as far as like the odds of my power goes out, it's probably pretty low.
Until some dude with an AK-47 decides to shoot a transformer at the power.
Fair enough.
At the substation.
Yeah, they'll do it.
Now, is your HOA going to fine you for running a generator in your backyard during a power outage?
Well, they didn't find me the other day, so
nice.
I'll let you know.
Yeah.
I'll let you, if it goes on too long, then I guess I probably will have to do it.
Hey, their fines are $400, and I'm pretty sure I have more than $400 worth of food in my freezer. So on that alone, worth it.
Yeah.
Well, you could offer to let them charge their phones, and maybe that fine goes away.
Probably.
There you go.
Or offer to hold their steaks in your freezer.
Yeah, nice. Or if it's like a whole hurricane thing.
They really fine you for running your generator?
Who knows?
Okay, I saw a meme the other day, and I don't know if this is accurate. A fellow in an HOA got a letter posted to his door that said, we saw you during the power outage. You had a generator, and you were watching the football game, and you made people feel really bad because they didn't have generators. So you were being inconsiderate. I don't think there was a fine attached to that, but that cracked me up. If that was true, it sounds like no place I would ever want to live. Yeah.
It's not recent, but I also saw that. So it's probably real.
My feed is breaking up, guys.
Somebody has a comment there for you, Drew.
Oh, let's take a
Oh,
look.
what do we got?
It says, Drew, I told the kids I didn't know what you were talking about. Said they should ask you.
Oh, this one's for me, Drew. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I got nothing.
You don't know what they were talking about either, huh?
Maybe you can explain it to him. We'll let you handle that.
Who
They're
was
your
it?
kids. I mean,
Earmuffs.
Oh,
Charlie says HOAs are the devil. You know, like I said,
Maybe.
you know, and you know, Handsome Drew was saying this too. It just probably really depends on which one you get. I mean, I had one that really wasn't that bad, and the one I'm under they're fine. They don't really bother anyone. The worst thing you really get is like a letter that's just kind of a, hey, pull the weeds in your front yard. You know, there's people who've gotten that here. That's really about it. I mean, I don't. I've heard some horror stories though.
Yep. Like I said, I've talked to my HOA president a couple times, and he sounds pretty cool with it. And if I told him I was running a generator to have my radio station up and sending win links and JS8 call messages to let people's families know that they were okay, there's not a shot that he would let the people who run our HOA find me. No chance.
Nice.
But you got to talk to him. You got to let them know why you're doing it.
Otherwise, would you ever run for a position on your HOA?
No, not a chance. Well, I'm young. Maybe later when I have a little more free time, I'm a little older, and you know, maybe then. But not right now. I'm only
when you're retired and you know what to do.
So yeah, maybe then. Maybe then I'll worry about it. I'll have time then. Right now, no time, no shot.
me personally, I would live in a cardboard box in the woods before I would live in an HOA.
Must be nice to have the option.
Yeah, and I get why you do it. Some people are that's your only option at the time.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, and I you can't fault somebody for that. You know, you're moving there for work and you have timeline and you got to buy a place because you have a family. I mean, I really can't fault somebody for it.
Yeah. I mean, those states are back there for a reason. They were states I've lived in the last 8 years. So I've moved a ton for work.
You know, but I've lived in the country my entire life. You know, for me to even fathom thinking about getting an apartment in a town or a city is just a foreign concept to me. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, it's gross.
Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up in Ohio on a farm, basically. So,
Right.
like, half the reason why I'm so capable of doing everything I do is because
How you grew up.
you fix it yourself, otherwise you don't have it.
Right.
Of course, you know, those types of fathers are usually hard on you, and you hate them then, but you move out and you're like, man, don't tell him I said this, but he might have been right.
Life's hard, man. You know, it's good to have someone that teaches you how to do those things. You know, my dad, my brothers as well, they all taught me how to fix cars, shoot guns, you know, repair things, and it's invaluable experience. And I don't know, it seems like not a lot of people are on board with that these days. There's a lot of, you know, people that can't change a tire, unfortunately.
Well, just like this project I had here at the house, I rebuilt that whole deck. And I've never done a deck before.
Yeah, you did a good job. It looks good.
You know, I think it turned out really well. But you know, I grew up on a farm, so we did stuff like that. I didn't build things, but we repaired things, and you know, I had a clue. And YouTube University helps a lot. You know, especially when you're trying to look at technical things and do it the right way.
Well, we're butting up on 2 hours here, guys.
Yeah, it is. It is getting up there. Well, do you guys have anything else that you'd like to talk about?
Tapped out.
I think we did it. Well, apologies for the power outage. We'll see how long this goes, but I probably should.
Apology accepted.
I should probably jump off here anyway. I got to spin some things up before it turns into Lord of the Flies here and shit just goes haywire. Well, with that, Handsome Drew, thank you for joining us and doing a live with us. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun to chat with you, and maybe we'll do this again at some point.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
And is there anything that you would like to plug while we're on the subject of Instagram channels and the product that you were showing earlier?
Not really. If you're watching this, you're probably already preparing for stuff, and I hope that we gave you some ideas on things you can do to better yourself, and I hope you go after them. That's about it.
Absolutely.
People can find you on Instagram at HOA Ham Radio Guy.
That's the one. Yep. My you'll see my Instagram page. My picture is, you can see my house pack on my back with an antenna sticking off of it. That's me.
Right on. I guess Jared and then Drew, do you guys have anything you want to wrap up with?
Nope, I don't have anything on my end.
Well, Drew, it was super good meeting you and chatting with you today. I thought it was fascinating, the concept of hiding your discrete antennas, and I really appreciated the conversation. It's my kids out there. We'll be calling Uncle Jared later, and he can answer any questions you have. And you, the viewers out there, if you have any questions on how to set up your own backup amateur radio communication system using text message, it's very Wi-Fi friendly over FL Digi and JSA call over your 2-meter FM that's accessible to the technician level of amateur licensee. You can check out my channel on YouTube at Terminal Element. Love to see you there.
Awesome. Well, I guess my advice for today is, if you're interested in preparedness, start with some backup power. It seems to be working out okay for me right now, but we'll see.
A fantastic demonstration.
Good lesson.
Yeah, I'm glad it worked out, and it just I usually test all my shit, and this is the result, I guess. But with that, thanks for everyone for watching, and thanks again to Handsome Drew. We'll hope to have you on again sometime, and then be safe out there, I guess. So if you guys will stick around for a minute, I'll capture the rest of the audio, and then we will do the outro. But thanks everyone that watched.
Good seeing you, everybody.
Thank you.